Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I rise to talk about the town of Katherine in the Northern Territory. It's a community 3 hours south of Darwin when you travel by car. Captures the great Katherine region with the rivers on both sides, the Roper, the Katherine itself, and obviously the Vic River regions. Beautiful country. Unfortunately, the town is seriously impacted by chemical contamination of its water supply. RAF-based Tyndall is right next door to Katherine, and the Tyndall Air Base is well utilised in terms of the domestic flights in and out of Katherine. It's not just for the RAF purposes. The base was opened in 1989 and has been certainly an economic boom to the town, and certainly for the many families from RAF Tyndall, not just now but previously. They have been very much involved with the growth of the region, and have no doubt some of them made it home for much longer than they ever envisaged. It's also a place with very strong agricultural industries. But defence is a major and certainly very welcome presence in the region. However, the problem is that, unknown to people of Katherine and certainly the Tyndall RAF base even, the water was being slowly polluted. And the reason, a firefighting foam used on defence bases such as Tyndall by aviation fighting. Mr Acting Deputy President, is contained in a group of chemicals, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS for short. It's an acronym that is sadly now very familiar to just about every family in Katherine. Sampling by Defence has found certainly concentrated levels of PFAS in the Tyndall aquifer, which has required further investigation and a report to be completed in the new year, around April. Way too long for many residents, certainly a question that I will continue to ask in terms of the timeframe. There is global concern about the chemicals because they do not degrade in the natural environment, and the chemicals are known as an emerging contaminant, and their specific impact on the environment and humans is still being investigated. The primary exposure pathway for humans is from drinking the water. Other exposure routes can include eating foodstuffs produced from impacted land and water systems like fish, poultry, meat and veggies. Katherine's bores, drinking supply and local pool are contaminated with traces of PFAS. Compulsory water conservation measures are imposed already in an effort to minimise the amount of PFAS in the water supply. That took place with the Northern Territory Government calling on Katherine residents to reduce and be conservative about their use of water. And when you think about a place like Katherine in the wet season, when we have tremendous amounts of rain coming through, to now have water restrictions, just the mind boggles. In fact, when I was in Katherine last week and listened to residents, to families express concern, but also ask so many questions, that was a constant fact raised. People just couldn't believe that they have to have water restrictions in an area that is so rich, full of water. Certainly the Katherine community is doing a great job keeping water use down and ensuring they do not use bore water in the town water supply. But more than 50 Katherine households, and this is in the rural area, that have been told not to drink their water supply due to PFAS contamination originating from the RAF base Tyndall, and the Defence Department trucks in water each week to these 50 properties, which means they must have the water bottles. And I think it's important for the Senate to understand the seriousness that's taking place in the north. With the temperatures starting to reach 40 degrees, the local pool has also closed because of PFAS contamination. Have a think about that. Your local pool has closed. The rivers we're always conscious of anyway because of the crocodiles that are in the area. There is something going on in Katherine that I urge the Senate to be asking more questions about. It's certainly a very serious situation for any town to be in. It's important that this government be completely on top of this situation and to give absolute reassurance to the residents of the Katherine region about what is going on, especially given that there has been similar experiences in other parts of the country about this very issue, PFAS, with contaminations in the Queensland town of Oakey and Williamtown in New South Wales. So this is not new. This is not new. However, the mistakes that should have been learned from Queensland and from New South Wales are perhaps mistakes that may have just been repeated in the Northern Territory. Again, I will be certainly asking many questions to understand how it was that our area was not informed much sooner. It seems certainly very few lessons on how to engage with a community dealing with a contaminated water supply. There are certainly big questions this government still has to answer from the Katherine community about the contamination. When did the Defence first become aware of PFAS in Katherine's water? Was there a delay? And who is responsible? The residents of Katherine have continually received mixed messages from this government. One week they're telling residents the water is safe to drink, and the next they're bringing in a water treatment plant to reduce the amount of PFAS in the town water supply. And where did this water treatment plant come from? It came from the United States. It took many, many weeks to get here, if not months. So while long-term solutions may be worked on, certainly with this water treatment plant in place, it's there to reduce the amount of PFAS in the Katherine town water supply, and it's expected to treat once it's up and running. It's not working yet. There's still to put this in. And the expectation is that it should be November. So this water treatment plant that's come all the way from the United States, being put together by the Katherine River, is expected to treat 1 million litres of groundwater per day. Yeah, a lot, hey? To try and reduce the PFAS. There is no nationally consistent approach to the management of PFAS contamination around the country, leaving the Katherine community in limbo until Defence completes its epidemiological study early next year. And that is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Katherine residents are rightly asking for access to the same services provided to residents in Williamtown and in Oakey. But we can't get it. We're not receiving it. If the situation in Katherine is at the point where a water treatment plant had to be rushed in from the United States and a local swimming pool closed, it's time for the federal government to implement blood tests so the residents of Katherine can check just how far the PFAS contamination has taken place within their own health system. This government should be adopting Labor's PFAS response in its entirety, including clear and coordinated communication with the community, a nationally consistent approach to the management of PFAS contamination around the country, and blood tests for communities affected by PFAS contamination around Defence sites. Even the families at Tyndall Air Force Base are very concerned. They need to be reassured that their families are okay. The residents of Katherine and Tyndall deserve more from this very, very haphazard and certainly unresponsive government.